lights. Thanks.
Great, so we wanted to give you an update on where we are. Here's what we're going to touch on. We'll talk about the demolition and abatement update. Aric is going to take care of most of that. I want to talk about the West Roadway because there are going to be some changes. You've already noticed changes in the West Roadway based on the current work that's been happening. But as we look to develop the utilities and the below-grade infrastructure, we're going to continue to be impacted in the West Roadway. And this is not a popular position, but it is going to get a little bit worse before it gets better. So I want to talk through that. Tree update as well. I know that's been a concern of people as we've removed a series of trees, and we're really focused on the last set of trees there, and we want to talk about the details there. I'll give you an update on mural conservation. I think people know that we took 3 WPA era murals out of the old hospital, and finally look at a little bit of the barging. So in terms of the demolition and abatement update, I'm going to turn it over to Aric to describe what they're up to.
Good evening, everybody. So the project has progressed a great deal since our last meeting. The entire interior abatement and demolition of Phase 1, buildings C, H, D, and F is complete. In the Phase 2, Building J is interior demolition and abatement is 100% complete, as is Building A. Building B is approximately 90% complete. It's undergoing its final stages of asbestos abatement on the first floor and in the basement. And Building E is being prepared for interior demolition and subsequent abatement. There is upcoming work on the roof of the B building that will be taking place in the next couple of weeks. And the approvals for the structural demolition of the first building in Phase 1, Building C, have all been granted. The item that we are currently pending and working on site now is Con Edison disconnecting the power and gas from the structure. We're awaiting their letters of confirmation that that has been completed, and that will allow us to pull our permits and begin taking down the actual structure itself.
So we included this text. We always share these presentations afterwards, so we included this text just as a description of where we are, but obviously easier to see it with the map on. This is a repeat of what Aric just said.
All right, all phase buildings again have completed interior demolition and asbestos abatement. What's inside those buildings now is basically core. The building is just a shell. You see some pictures of what it looks like before, and this is after interior demolition. Prior to asbestos abatement, this is after asbestos abatement and interior demolition. And the buildings that are completed have been secured so that no access is available into any of the buildings at this time. A is completed, ready for structural demolition. As discussed, interiors in B are just about done, and the roof is pending. Building E is pending interior demolition and abatement. The roof on that building will be the last roof to be done on the site. That's approximately a month and a half away. Building J has also been abated and is ready for structural demolition. All buildings fully sealed and secured that are vacant and gutted to prevent any unwanted access, as the full site is also secured with our construction fence and our security presence, which is 24/7.
That's actually the last slide. Do you want to just talk about next steps and what we're going to be looking at in the next month, say, or 2 months?
Sure. The biggest thing that you're going to notice is the structural demolition is far more visible from the site than any of the other work to date, which is taking place primarily inside the buildings and some work up on the roofs. The demolition procedure is a full mechanical demolition procedure. So what you will see is heavy equipment is going to be mobilized to the site by a barge. It's going to be assembled on site and begin the actual work itself. The equipment that we're using for this procedure is quite large. It will certainly be noticeable as it works. And what you will essentially see is the facades of these buildings will be removed by a mechanical excavator and high-reach excavator that will pull down the facade walls, exposing just slabs and structural columns all the way around the building until it's completely down and off-site. And then the remaining structure will be taken down bay by the heavy equipment. So what you would see from outside the fence is an excavator working in a chopping manner to pull down structural elements of the building, which will be collected and sorted on the ground for loading into containers that are staged at the site and transported onto the barge via a crane. Same procedure for barging waste that we're currently doing for the interior work. There'll be more volume, so you'll see barges more frequently as this procedure goes underway. It's a much more substantial amount of debris to come off during this phase.
And just to remind you, the sequence of the work, because the first phase of the campus is going to be developed in the phase 1 area, the purple area. You'll see the work beginning. The first structural demolition piece is building C. So you'll see the heavy equipment being assembled. It will arrive, it will be assembled, it will take down building C, and then move to the north. Is that
correct?
Correct.
The strategy is to begin work on C till the point where C is approximately 80% complete, and then move up to the northernmost end of the site, which is building F. Building F is a little bit different in the procedure because a certain portion of the building needs to be done by manual means because of its proximity to the public way. The Department of Buildings will not allow distance that's less than the height of the building horizontally out to be in the public way. So the first third of the building will be taken back by manual means. There will be scaffolding required to do that, so you'll see some scaffolding. And once the building is back to the safe working distance, the heavy equipment will come over from C and begin working F, and then we'll progress through D into H before moving on to the next phase, where we'll begin with the J building at the southern end of the site.
Any questions?
Yeah. Is some of the solid waste going to be used for foundation, or is it all being taken off the island?
There is some debris from concrete that will remain in place to partially backfill foundation holes.
About 50-50. Half goes and half stays.
Yeah, we're just going to elaborate on that. So I think you had alluded to, or actually said early on, that in order to elevate the site, you're going to use the debris. So
Yeah, we'll be using about 50% of the
50%,
debris will
cool.
be crushed. And so you'll see at a later stage there'll be a crusher on site. I think that doesn't show up until later, and they'll be crushing the slabs and masonry to the point where it's small enough to be used for backfill. But that's a later. But yes, that's still the plan.
Mark, is it ahead of schedule, on schedule, behind schedule?
But
The point you're at
It's
now,
behind,
is where you
it's behind,
expect
yeah,
it to be?
it's a little bit behind
A little
schedule.
behind?
Yeah, we had originally anticipated completing the demolition by the end of this calendar year. And it looks as though it's gonna extend a few months into 2015, depending on how the structural demolition goes and how the permitting process with DOB goes.
Is it too soon to determine if you can make that up in a later phase?
It is too soon, well, it's too soon on the demolition to determine that. We don't, this doesn't impact the overall delivery of the campus. No, and that's why early on we made the decision to focus on phase 1 for the demolition. So we had always anticipated starting the construction of the first academic building sometime in January of 2015. It's about a 30-month, maybe 28-month project. So as long as the phase 1 area is completed by the end of the calendar year, which is certainly within the schedule right now, we don't anticipate that issue. Other questions?
No.
Rick? Oh, Ellen, board member, Ellen.
How do you plan to keep particulate matter down?
We we have a dust suppression system that are basically high-powered misters. You will notice misting when the demolition work is in progress. They're basically large fans that you hook up to a hose and it blows fine mist water. And we just got them on site last week and we tried them out and it puts the water up there a good 50 foot in the air. So we've got 4 of those machines. We're going to put them in quadrants around the building. And in areas where the machine is actually working, there will be workers on lifts using water hoses that's pumping water up from a hydrant to hit the spot where the machine is working, while the rest of the site and the debris is misted.
board members, any more board members' questions? Public? Yeah, Rick?
Will there be any type of explosives used in the demolition of, or a wrecking ball or anything like that? So how will it be physically removed from the?
Wrecking ball is different than explosives.
No, I know.
Explosives.
Right.
You want to describe it?
Yeah, the procedure is you fit a grapple attachment to an excavator, sort of the similar type of excavator that you would see working in the street, except many magnitudes larger, with a large basic rake and grapple attachment that will pull down structural facade elements. And in combination with that, we also use a shear attachment. The machine is large enough that it actually cuts through steel beams. So as we get the facade off the building and we come back to the remaining columns and slabs, the machine will shear through column and beam connections and pull off with a grapple large pieces of steel, full-size steel members for loading out.
Is that
it's
extreme?
a large equipment.
Is that extreme noisy? I mean,
It makes noise, sure. Yeah, it does. It's an operation that is a substantial, heavy-duty demolition procedure. It's the kind of procedure that there will be noise down there. There will be noise.
okay, and
But
just
it's also working hours, allowable by Department of Buildings. The working day will stop at the allowable time, and you're not going to be ripping facade down or chopping the building the entire time. The important thing, the real logistical issue with this portion of the job is the movement of the waste. You generate a lot of waste very quickly, and you need a lot of time every day to put the waste in containers and to move the containers to where it can be loaded into the barge. At this point, we're anticipating a barge every 3 to 5 days when we hit this project. So you have a substantial amount of waste to move. You're going to need time at the end of the day to do that. So your noisier operations will stop earlier in the day.
thank you. There was also there was a power outage at South Point Park, I think last week or 10 days ago. Did that have anything to do with the construction?
Not directly.
But the Con Ed, there was something that.
Con Ed was in the process of cutting the electrical service off to, I think it was Building C, and some of the Phase 1 buildings. And their own, I believe what happened is that they believed that it was only connected to the hospital, but it turns out there was a secondary service associated with what they severed that was serving the South Point Park. Is that correct? Yeah. So this is a not uncommon situation that we run into on the island, which some of you may be familiar with, where some of the utilities were installed prior to the companies that currently operate them were involved, and so they don't have the most accurate plans showing how the system works. So yes, they were there on behalf of Cornell to sever the power to the hospital, but they were unaware that that was the same line that served the South Point Park. My understanding is it's been fixed, and that they've created a secondary service, but as part of the new overall utility plan that Cornell is putting in, we will be rerunning all of that conduit and separating it out and mapping it.
Okay, thank you.
One more. Okay, one more?
This is more of a family question.
Can you speak up then?
Oh, I'm sorry. This is a family question. I understood that you're gonna have some big equipment that's coming that's gonna be taken down from the side. And I was wondering if there was any viewing space so that the kids could watch the big equipment moving the facade around, because there's a lot of children on the island, and I think being able to see big equipment and big trucks is a really fun thing as people are going up and down, to the parks and back and forth. So is there a cutaway where they could actually maybe look up and see the big equipment?
We don't have any now, but there's no reason we couldn't put them in.
I'm sorry?
We don't have them now, but there's no reason we couldn't put one in, put a few in.
I just think that, we have those big kind of
Yeah.
equipments, it's not something that people or kids generally
Right.
get to see, and it may be
Right.
one of those ways of kind of, getting
Sure.
the community involved in that.
Great. We can do that.
Yeah, we have-
It's up
we
to
have-
the flexi or something.
Yeah, we have a mesh cover like a net, so we can just
Yeah.
plexiglass.
Yeah.